States of America. Now, we're going to talk today about having dreams, because all of us have got dreams. And I was really, really lucky when I was 11 years old to watch a film on television. And that film was all about the Antarctic. It was all about the real explorers who'd gone to the South Pole. And I was just captivated by that film at the age of 11. And I thought one day, maybe I might become the first person in history to walk to both poles. Now, it's all very well in life to have a dream, but often it takes a lot of effort to make that dream a reality.
Robert, you're on mute.
Somebody unmute me. I don't know what happened then because I was on. Anyhow, imagine at the age of 11, can you hear me now? Thumbs up, please. Right.
So
at the age of 11, yeah. Okay, how are we doing? Are we ready to fire in? Good stuff.
Great, yes, we can hear you now.
Great, well done. Okay, so at the age of 11, I watched this film. Everybody laughed at my dream to want to become the first person in history to walk to both poles. And they still laugh at me, but guess what? In between, we achieved that mission. And it took years and years and years of my life in London, my home city, to raise that money. And eventually, after all those years, we found ourselves ready to sail south from London on our little ship, Southern Quest. And this is going to be a long, long voyage past Africa, across to Australia, and then south from New Zealand into the terrible storms of the Antarctic. Ice starts to coat the ship, and eventually we arrive on the shores of this extraordinary place, Antarctica. The size, look at it. Think of the size of India. I think 4 Indias fit into the size of Antarctica. Look at it compared to the United States of America. And there we are coming south to this extraordinary continent. Then think about this, guys and girls. Our little ship now heads north away from the Antarctic, leaving 5 of us alone for a whole year. And we don't have any radio communications. We have no internet. We have nothing for 1 whole year. Imagine that. And our ship goes away, and we hope very much that our ship will come back to collect us 1 year later. Now, 5 of us go into our little home that we brought all the way from England. You've got to understand that there's nothing and there's nobody there. There's no infrastructure, there's no shops, there's no roads, there are no people, and the nearest people are 5,000 kilometers away back in New Zealand. So we have to take everything to survive for 1 year. 5 of us go into our little box. One day, the sun doesn't rise above the horizon. It's dark for 9 long months. And we have to get through this time. Sometimes we're cross with each other. Sometimes we're annoyed with each other. But we come through. We're a great team. And then eventually we find ourselves laying out our equipment on the edge of Antarctica. 3 people. Every single person said to us, "You're going to die. You'll run out of food. We're going to do something that no one else had ever done." More people had stood on the moon than had walked to the South Pole when we make this journey. So no radios, no iPhones to ring up mummy, nothing. So off we go, and we will navigate using what's old-fashioned technology, the sun, a thing called a sextant, and a watch. So off we go now to the South Pole, 3 of us. On each sledge is all our food, all our equipment, everything. And off we go 900 miles now, every day, 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 70 days in a row. And sometimes we have to cross these very, very dangerous things called crevasses, where you see this bridge where this guy's standing. Sometimes that bridge can break and you go in, you don't come home, you're dead. They're hundreds of feet deep. And now we're standing in an area now the size of the United States of America. We're really alone. We don't have any communications. If you fall over now and break your leg, that's it, you're left to die. So it's good reason not to fall over. And we're standing now, as Gamathi said, we're standing on 90% of all the world's ice, 70% of all the world's fresh water. Think about it. Every time you have a drink, that's only 30% of the water of the entire world that we have for our use. And we must think carefully about not melting this. As we get closer to the South Pole now, our little ship, Southern Quest, is going to return. Remember, she'd left us a year earlier. Now she comes back. She's going to unload a little aeroplane, and the plane's going to fly all the way to the South Pole where we're going, collect us, go back to base, and then do something that we promised to do. Antarctica is the only place in the world that all of us own. No one owns Antarctica. No country owns it. No person owns it. We all own it. And I promised a great man who'd help me do this, and some of you might have a look at him at some stage in your classes, a chap called Jacques Cousteau from France. And he was one of the great first environmental leaders. And he said, Rob, at the end of your journey, just leave all of Antarctica clean. Take away your rubbish and your garbage and your equipment and do the right thing. Leave Antarctica just with your footsteps in the snow. And the last few miles to the pole, were we going to make it? Yes, we did. And that is at the bottom of the world, where you can't go any further south. You can't go east. You can't go west. Every direction at the South Pole is due north. Think about that. And we'd done it as a team. There lay the South Pole. And we stood for 5 minutes and were really proud of what we'd achieved. It was a great, great moment. And as we were standing there, the commander of the base at the South Pole came out and said, guys, your ship just sank. So our ship had come back, terrible storm, the ice had come together, bang, down went our ship. Everybody was safe, but remember, I'd made a promise that we would take away everything and leave Antarctica tidy. And I think in this world, you know, if you make a promise, you should deliver on it. So to cut a long story short, guys and girls, it would take a whole extra year of our lives. And I had to eventually get a ship to come into Antarctica, another one. And we loaded everything up 1 year later and did what we said we were going to do and left Antarctica tidy. Now, something happened to me as I walked the South Pole, which I never expected. My eyes changed color in 70 days through damage, and our faces with the sun blistered out and the skin came away, and we didn't know why. And when we got home, we were told why. That we'd walked under a thing called a hole in the ozone layer, caused by all of us using this rather dangerous gas called CFC gases. And it'd gone up and eaten this hole in a special layer of gas that protects us all from the sun. And the sun had come through that hole, hit the ice, burnt us. And it started me thinking that maybe looking after our world and surviving on our planet might not be somebody else's problem. It might be mine. It started me thinking. But first, we're now going to go to the North Pole. And the North Pole is a whole different game than the South. The South Pole, remember, is ice on land. The North Pole is a frozen sea. So every step we take towards the North Pole, 700 miles, is going to be going away from land, like going down to the beach, going down to Marine Drive and starting to walk across the ocean, way out to sea towards the United Arab Emirates. It's a long way to go, 700 miles. Every step, we're walking across a frozen sea. This would be our home for 56 nights in a row, 8 of us from 7 different nations. And in this tent, like in life, we had to learn patience with each other. Look on the right there at Daryl. He would be the first American to walk to the North Pole, but you can see, he really did not like Rupert's music much. He got the thumbs down here. And we had to learn to be patient with each other on this expedition. And we also had to learn to wash, because although it's freezing, once a week you have to go outside, get some soap and wash your body, otherwise you get really bad body sores. Now, some of you, even in India, might have said, "Ooh, I'm cold." Well, I can guarantee you've never been cold. This guy, me, if your face ever looks like that, you're really, really cold. And then, as just when we thought we were going to reach the North Pole, remember how many years this had taken, how many miles that we'd covered, and then it all turned into the most frightening moment of my life. At the beginning, the ice just started to move a bit beneath our feet. 4 days later, all of the ice had broken up around us. And we can't have rescue. We don't have a radio. There are no helicopters. There's no aeroplanes can land on this. And as Gamathi said, now we know about words like climate change and global warming. This was 30 years ago. And those words, well, we didn't know them. So we weren't thinking, oh, crikey, this is global warming. We were thinking we're going to die. Because as we walked through this, imagine, often we're going backwards in a day further than we're going forwards and north to the pole. And let me tell you something, everybody, that 30 years on, in fact, last year, I went to the Arctic on a ship with my son Barney. You'll meet him in a minute in the story. And we went way up north towards the North Pole on a ship full of fantastic students. Lots of young people came from India. And I just stopped the ship and I got everybody on the deck and I said, listen, 30 years ago, we were walking on ice right here. And they all looked out and there wasn't one piece of ice anywhere that we could see. So in 30 years, you cannot any longer walk to the North Pole. Think about that. You can't do it because there's no ice. So if anybody ever says to you, well, I'm not too sure if climate change is happening, send them to me and I'll show them. And people became damaged. This is a bad injury on our brave American Daryl. We had to help him keep going. You remember, on a team, you have to help each other. And when one person has a bad day, you help them. Because everybody on a polar journey, we all have bad days. And it's really good teamwork. Help each other, it's key. And then, after all those miles, all those battles, we stood right on the top of the world at 90 degrees north. And guess what? Every single direction now is due south, not due north when we were at the South Pole there. And we were proud to fly this flag. I hope some of you might recognize that flag because we were one team of the world and flying the United Nations flag. We were proud to do that. We went back home. I thought I could go and see my mum, but no, Jacques Cousteau, this incredible man from France, brought me in to go and see him. And he said to me, Rob, what are you going to do with your life for the next 50 years? And I said, okay, I'm listening. And 30 years ago, Jacques Cousteau gave me a mission. Now, Antarctica, twice the size of Australia, 4 times the size of India, big place, as I said earlier, is the only place in the world that we all own. No one owns it. But in 2041, only 20 years to go now, the world will decide on the future of the Antarctic. And don't you think it would be really great if we just left one place alone forever as a natural reserve, land for science and peace? I think it's important for people not born yet. Wouldn't they be proud of us if we just left one place alone? And it's our last chance to show that we could do something like that. So for 30 long years, I've been working on this mission. So how have we done that? And by the way, no one ever gives you money to do it. It's a mission that we took on as a team. And first, I would involve people of your age, young people from all over the world. Because guess what? In 2041, you'll be voting on the future of the Antarctic. And I also really like practical missions. So we went down to Antarctica and came across this terrible mess left by the former Soviet Union in the Antarctic. All this mess and garbage and rubbish. And I just said, right, we're going to move this because we need to clean up Antarctica. This would be a huge battle. It would take 8 years of my life, millions of dollars that I had to raise, but it was worth it. And students, young people, teachers, we had engineers came down every year for 8 years, because you can only go to Antarctica for 3 months a year because of the weather. And gradually we pulled all of this together. I managed to get a beautiful yacht sponsored to come down and make films and take people around. Her name is 2041, quite simply because people say, why is your yacht called 2041? And we could tell them why, okay? And we took down a giant ship, and we would have to take all of this rubbish out from Antarctica. And my mum sends lots of love to you all. My mother is 105 years old, and she sends lots of love to you all today. I spoke to her this morning, and she inspired me when I was your age to think seriously about recycling, because recycling is an important part of our lives. And she said, Rob, you must recycle all of this and get it out of Antarctica and then have it recycled, which we did. And on this day, the beach was clean. After 8 years, all that rubbish had gone. The penguins could come back onto their beach. And I thought, I need to step this up. I need to do this even better. Because think about it, guys and girls, think about it. Why would people go to Antarctica? It's really cold, but they go there to get energy. They go there to get oil, coal, gas. They would go there for resources. And I thought to myself, hang on, maybe I should help renewable clean energy in our world, get it to what they call scale, get a lot of it going, and then no one's going to go to Antarctica because it won't make financial sense to go to Antarctica. It'd be too expensive to go and get resources from there. So I decided that I would become a renewable energy champion to help preserve Antarctica. To do that, remember our beautiful yacht, we would sail the 7 seas around the world, showing people how renewable energy works. And some of you might recognize this bridge. It's only about 100 miles from where I am, the famous Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And we would go round the world showing how energy can power a yacht. We even had solar panel sails and sails made of recycled plastic bottles. Think of that. And they worked. And in the engine room of our yacht, we would try out different types of amazing biofuels. I've even had some fuel made for our yacht, which was from garbage and rubbish off the streets of Bangalore, India. Think about that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And every year, we go to the Antarctic. And I take young leaders, old leaders like me, down to the Antarctic just for 2 weeks every year. And on those expeditions, we have extraordinary, great people that come from all over the world to join us. We've had over 80 now, 80 incredible women from the Middle East, often guys, the first people from their countries to go to the Antarctic, even before men. Isn't that cool? And of course, we've had a huge amount. I think it's now 120, I think it's 26 young people from India who've come with us to the Antarctic. Isn't that amazing? And I'm so proud that they've done that. But let's be honest, there are more people under the age of 25 in your great country than there are people in the whole of Europe. Think of that. So it's important that we get to people of your age, so we're doing the right thing as far as energy and as far as our environment's concerned. I'm very proud of that picture. And also we take a lot of young people again from China, another huge country, very important, not only because India and China will be the biggest powers on Earth in 20 years. So hopefully they can help protect Antarctica, but also they can become leaders in looking after our world. And what we see in Antarctica is very frightening. Huge pieces of ice just coming away from the Antarctic. And stop a minute and just realize how big this iceberg is. This iceberg is 150 feet above the water. And that means an iceberg, you only see 1/8 of an iceberg. So underneath the waterline, there's a good 1,000 feet of more ice. So think about that. That's a hell of a lot of ice that's breaking off the Antarctic. And we see that every time we go. And I thought, hang on, what can we do? We need to inspire teachers. And that's one of the reasons I'm extremely proud to be a supporter of your school, because teachers are really important, students are really important on the mission of preserving Antarctica. And I thought, let's build some things we called education stations, running only on renewable energy. And this was our first one in Antarctica, running off solar thermal, and that was the first one. Now, I was really, really excited to come to your country. It's actually not that long ago since we started this mission in India, and I think you'll be really proud of what we've done there. And I want to thank, and I hope she's watching and she's on the line today, Reshma Viramal, and her family really helped us get this going in India. And I decided that if I was going to go and speak to young people in India, I should maybe go sometimes on a bicycle, because I felt, I don't know, walk the talk. You know, if I arrived in some smart car, it wouldn't have been the same. So this is me in Delhi. And one of the reasons I really love your country, young people, have a look at the color of the traffic signal here. What color is it? It's red. And everybody's just going straight through, just my type of country. And this was great to go round, a bit dangerous on a bike, but it was worth it. And that is one of my favorite pictures ever. In Delhi, that's the road up to your parliament. And it just felt great to be on my bike going round your wonderful country. And on the way, thanks to Reshma and her family, we went to the Pench Tiger Reserve and we built there another education station. And for quite a long time, I think Reshma was in the center there in green, that we would have students who had nothing, by the way, local young people coming in. We involved ourselves with the wonderful rangers who look after the tigers in the park there, and it was all really, really positive stuff. You know something? Our world's a bit gloomy, don't you think? It's a bit gloomy right now with all this virus and all these problems that we seem to have. Well, I tell you what, if you believe in things, anything's possible. Very proud of the e-base in the Pench Tiger Reserve. On my bicycle ride, I went to one of the most extraordinarily terrible places I've ever been to. Deonar is the biggest landfill site in the whole of India, just outside where you are in Mumbai. And this was like, what? A lot of rubbish here. And I thought, wow, who's doing some recycling here? But guess what? I met an extraordinary team of women there, incredible women, who were going in to that enormous, huge, giant, and I have to say, very smelly waste dump and pulling out plastic. And then I would follow that journey to go and see what that made. And then eventually really create this, I'm very proud of this, that we got some of that plastic and recycled, you know, those cartons that we all use for milk and things like that. And we made desks for classrooms where young people had never had a desk before. So they were pretty happy that they had a desk. Very proud of that. And we also went up to a very, very special place in your country, which is the source of your mother river, the Ganga River. This place is a very holy place. It's called Gomukh. And I stood there, actually on that day, really cold. I have to say, it was freezing. And this is the source of a river that I think provides over 400 million people with water in your country. And that glacier at Gomukh is melting almost as fast as a person could crawl. If it goes, what's going to happen to the river? So we went up there, had a look at it, and formed a really good team with a great guy who'd come on one of my expeditions to Antarctica, Paris Lumba, and he formed this really cool group called the Global Himalayan Expedition Group. And with him, we built another e-base high in the Himalayas up in Ladakh. And local teachers go there, just like the Pench Tiger Reserve e-base, all running on renewable energy. Really good stuff, very proud of that. And what Paris has done, and I've joined him for a couple of expeditions, is to go up into the Himalayas to villages that have never had electricity. Think of that, guys and girls who are on this call. No electricity. Imagine your life. Well, we went on this one to go and bring light, solar light, to a monastery. And they'd never had light, solar light. And this young man was able to do his homework after 6 o'clock at night because he had a solar torch. Before that, it had been dark and he couldn't do it. So we were very proud of that. And this is a NASA. I hope you all know what NASA is. They are the space agency in the United States of America. They sent people to the moon in 1969, and they take incredible photographs and images from space. And all these colored parts on this photograph are all ice caps that are melting. And you know, maybe your science teachers can show you, probably all know anyhow, being, you know, coming from India, you're also clever, that if you have an ice sheet on the surface of the ocean floating, if that ice sheet melts, it doesn't raise the sea level. But when that ice sheet has gone, the ice, as you can see on this picture, starts to come in from the ice on land. And ice that comes from land into the ocean raises the sea level. So this is quite an important moment, and it may not quite matter for many of us, but it sure as hell matters to people who've got nothing. And this is a picture of a family in the Maldives, and they'd never just used any carbon in their lives. They hadn't done anything to deserve to have to move house. And we should think about that. These things are happening. They're not something that may happen, they are happening. And we came out of that meeting with the NASA, and my son Barney, he's 26 years old now, he was 22 at the time, said, listen, Dad, you carry on and preserve Antarctica. But I really feel I've got to help young people today to have hope and to find convenient, easy solutions for them that they can act on. Because it's not easy being young today, is it? Everything's negative. Everybody's telling us that the world's going to end tomorrow. And, you know, it's not easy. And I think it's important that we all have hope. So Barney has this incredible mission called the Climate Force Challenge, and it's all about easy, convenient solutions. But there was a catch. And Barney said, Dad, will you please come and walk to the South Pole with me? And I said, no, I'm not walking to the South Pole. I've done all that. And he said, Dad, please come. Let's make this journey together. And let's make it very special. So I said, okay, I'm in, I'll do this. And we would make this journey for the first time. I want you to think about this. It's minus 40. Your fingers freeze in 30 seconds. And the most important thing to stay alive when you're at the South Pole and you're pulling a sledge is that you've got to have hot water. And that hot water goes into a packet and it makes your dehydrated food. And without hot water, you're dead. And for years, we've just used normal petrol, jet aviation fuel, and we thought, how can we do this differently? And we went to NASA, incredible this, and they made us these incredible ice melters where you put snow and ice in these containers, and then you put the lid on, and then through solar, 6 hours later, you've got hot water. One day, think about this, this technology will be used on Mars, because the first people to go to Mars will be people like me. They won't waste money on an astronaut, because the first people to go to Mars will have to survive just like we do at the South Pole with virtually nothing. And also the first people to go to Mars will never come home because there won't be fuel to bring them back. So one day our technology will be used there. And off we went. This was fantastic. To the South Pole, my son and I, side by side. It was great, father and son together. It was so exciting to make this journey. And it's so important we all work together. You know, young people can't work on their own, and older people, we've got to join this together, be a proper team. And after 300 miles of pulling that sledge, I face failure. My hip starts to grind and it's making this terrible noise and it's really hurting and I can't sleep. And sadly, and this was a horrible day, I have to come out from the expedition, and this was horrible. I felt such a failure. I felt terrible. It was really bad. And Barney would carry on, and only 23, and with his two companions, Kyle and Martin, they would forge on for that 300 miles to the South Pole. And Barney lost part of his toe, but he didn't mind. It was worth it. And I managed to fly in to see Barney as they came in. Do you know something? Old people like me have got to hand over as much as we can to young people like you. Got to hand it over. And this had nothing to do with Rob Swan. It was all to do with what Barney, Kyle and Martin had done. The first ever expedition to any pole, only surviving on renewable energy. Well done them. However, anybody who knows me, I was not going to look at a map for the rest of my life thinking there were only 300 miles to go to the South Pole. So I had a brand new hip put in, and at the beginning of this year, beginning of 2020, went back to exactly the spot where Barney, Kyle and Martin had carried on, where I had to come out. And this time I needed really the A team, the best of the best. I managed to persuade Johanna and Katinka from Norway. These are just they are the top polar explorers on the planet. Incredible people. And they very kindly said, Rob, we'll help you get to the pole. It was just amazing. And Kyle, our brave cameraman, he lives in Norway. He's originally South African. He would come to make the film. So a team of 4 would embark on what we call the last 300. But again, remember, if we use more clean, renewable energy in the real world, we're going to help save Antarctica. So this time I had incredible stuff. Like I had fuel made from CO2, the dirt we put in the air. I had jet fuel made of that. Incredible. Put the dirt into the air, suck it out. Incredible. I had dark glasses made of CO2. I had all of my equipment was made of recycled plastic bottles. I had more fuel made of garbage and rubbish. Incredible stuff, testing it all out, and off we went. And this was the only time in my life that I've enjoyed walking to the South Pole. And I have to say that, you know, after 150 miles, I was feeling good. 97 miles to the pole now, so near. And I lost concentration. I went out of the tent in the morning, said good morning to Kyle, got out of the tent, fell over, and my new hip went right out of its socket. And I was left lying there again, feeling that I'd failed. Only 97 miles from the pole. And it was a horrible day, very, very painful. And I got flown to the South Pole, and it just felt so lonely and just terrible, really. Such a sense of disappointment and upset. But, of course, I've had more adjustments to my hip, more nuts and bolts put in to help it. And at the end of this year, I'm going back to the South Pole. Our expedition's called Undaunted, and I'm being joined by a great team of women and men who are wounded veterans, people who've lost an arm, lost a leg in war, and they're going to come and join me to make those last few miles to the South Geographic Pole. I think in this world, you know, if you say you're going to do something, you should do it. and I really am looking forward to finishing that mission that Barney and I started all those years ago. And by the way, Barney's going to come and join me for those last few miles to the pole as well. And I believe these words, guys and girls. Read them. It's a thing about life too. In our world consumed by people scrolling and taking selfies of themselves, and just stop for a second and say to yourself, hey, it's not somebody else's problem that the forests are burning, that there's pollution everywhere. And it's not somebody else's problem, it's ours. But isn't it incredible, don't you think, that in the last 8 months, the air in your capital city, Delhi, has actually improved because we haven't been flying around and driving around as we used to. So think about that. And finally, for you very techno people, don't laugh, but I've just been forced by Barney to join Instagram because he said, Dad, we need to get a few million people behind 2041. So I've joined Instagram. I'm not too sure how it works, by the way, but like me or hate me or whatever one does with this, because I'm going to build up a good base of people, because we're going to make sure that we preserve Antarctica. So thank you so much for listening to our story. And I hand back over to Gomathi. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Robert, for doing this. It was absolutely interesting and so inspiring to actually see this journey through your eyes. And as you were sharing, there were so many little questions that have come up. A lot of them are so curious about the little things that, that we might have not even thought about in your journey, but there is so many amazing things that have come up that I would like to ask you and sort of address with you right now. So I'm going to quickly address them right away. One of the questions that did come up is, how can young people be inspired by activists like Greta Thunberg in becoming climate change activists? What do you think we can do in our little bit?
I think what's important is that, a lot of young people around the world, including in India, are very angry.
They're very angry
about the state of our world that my generation have left you. You have every right to be angry because it's not very good. But I think that what one's got to do is to take the passion of people like Greta, but we can't just be angry. It doesn't get us anywhere in life. Being angry never gets anybody anywhere. So what we've got to do is take the passion and turn it into solutions, things that we can do every day. And if all of us make some small changes to our lives, get our families to do that, and if you want to know what changes you can do, please have a look at Barney's website, climateforce.com. Have a look at it. He's got some great ideas on what people can do. But don't just be angry. Turn that into action and solutions.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert. We have another question in those lines. One of our students is really interested to understand, how is it that you were able to get water and, when you were there in the Antarctic, how did you get access to water?
Well, remember, we're walking across ice. And that's why we needed those incredible ice melters, or the old stoves that we used to use running on petrol. So what you do, it's great because it's the cleanest water on the planet. You're in the middle of Antarctica. So what you do is you use your shovel, you dig some snow, and then you get your stove going, and then put little pieces of snow into that pot, and gradually that melts. And then you boil it up, and often you use something like this to put your hot water in, and then you can use it later in the day or the next morning. So that's how you do it. It's snow on the North Pole, same thing, ice that you're walking across. So you're quite lucky, you've always got plenty of water, but a lot of people have died doing what I do, because you should never ever eat snow. However thirsty you get, you never drink salt water, you'll die. If you eat snow, it dehydrates you more than the water that that melting that snow in your mouth gives you.
So in fact, just a continuation of that is a message that we just got about, were you able, did you happen to find any green algae in water? Was that was that something that you could reheat and drink? All of these really, really, questions about what you've done, because it's so inspiring to just hear you say all these things and to go through that journey with you, right? So Robert, we just have so many questions about how you survived in the Antarctic.
Well, I think it's remember, the really amazing thing about pollution is that there is no pollution in Antarctica. So any water there, it's all clean. The air is perfect. And your vision, everything, it's just like being on another planet. And when one goes around, India and your great city of Bombay, Mumbai, there's a lot of pollution there. But I think that we can turn that, and we have to turn that. And one of the most important things is, I've talked about renewable energy, haven't I? Now, how many of you guys and girls at home have got a mobile phone or a laptop? I bet you have. And how many of you are charging that device using solar? Well, you can, and you can have just a little solar panel on the window at home. Try and use solar, and eventually that will mean that solar becomes cheaper, because the more that people have to make solar panels, the cheaper they get. So don't feel that even if you have a solar panel that size, you're making a difference. Never feel that you can't make a difference, ever.
Thank you, Robert. We have another question about how much renewable energy do you think is being used in the world currently?
Well, there are some great stories, and it's really happening fast now. That in my country, in England, we used to use coal to power everything. And now, incredibly, for the first time in 150 years, coal is not providing any energy in the UK. It stopped. Now, of course, they're using gas, but wind and even solar power in England, can you believe it? Because it's the worst weather on the planet, and that's why I live in California. But even solar works in England. But Germany, now there's a good story. Germany, on a hot, windy summer's day, and they don't have, I think 80 million people live in Germany, that 80% of all their power on a nice, hot, windy summer's day comes from renewables. Now, in India, it's starting, but obviously there's a lot of people in India who want to have energy, and I know that. 900 million people right now don't have very much. So what we've got to think about is how we get there. So using renewable energy in India is a key part of this, and people should push for it and try and get government and ministers and people to be part of that. But I tell you what's really amazing, that since I was on my bicycle in India, the whole world's changed as far as energy. It's starting to really lift up the whole use of renewable energy on a global basis, but it's still not fast enough, because experts are saying we've only got about 10 years to make the changes necessary that we need to make sure that our planet will survive. Well, not the planet, that will survive, but maybe we might not.
Absolutely. And in fact, keeping the previous question about solar panels and energy in mind, we have one of our audience members who was asking you about how solar panels work in the sense of would they degrade? Is there, some sort of a way that we would have to stop using solar panels at any point?
I think that solar panels, in the construction of them, but they're getting better. The original solar panels, well, possibly, yeah, they were providing clean energy, but they were providing quite a lot of problems in what to do with them. Quite rightly, a good question. Could you recycle them? And the answer was at the beginning, possibly not. But solar panels, like everything, are becoming more and more lighter, less need to put huge amounts of resources into making them. And I think that, again, they're a really good stopgap. And they will become cheaper, lighter, and eventually, I think you can actually, at the moment, with the latest panels, you can recycle some of them, but eventually they will recycle all of them. And it's an interesting thing just to put in your minds, young people listening, that one day people will mine into old landfills. People will be going mining into Dayanar, that massive landfill outside Mumbai, because they'll be going in to find all the stuff that we threw away. And they'll be pulling out those things, old refrigerators, old phones, anything, and then they'll be recycling some of the things from that. Mark my words, that will happen. But solar panels are a good bridge. I think that wind energy is possibly something that will really be a huge part of this, and especially wind turbines that are put offshore, so they're not affecting people on the land so much. It's a balance. Nothing's ever perfect, but using coal is less than perfect.
Absolutely. Robert, thank you so much for sharing so much insight with us. We just quickly got another question, which is the best way to touch up on e-waste. What do you think, what would be the best way to get rid of e-waste?
The best way of getting e-waste is not to throw it away into the garbage and into a landfill, but I hope that there will be huge companies, and I think there already are, especially in India, where people are taking e-waste and recycling quite a lot of it, and that recycling will get better and better and better. I just think it's important that, and when one can end on that really, is that, we're all consumed by consuming. And a lot of us, buy new things every 5 minutes because their screen is bigger or it works, meant to be working faster. But I think one of the ways to recycle e-waste is not to create so much e-waste and to use the things that we have more than we possibly do. And I think that's an important thing. Let's not be consumed by consuming as much as we are.
Absolutely, Robert. In fact, Robert, I just wanted to bring to your attention that here in our audience today, we actually have somebody who is part of, who's part of a foundation that recycles e-waste. She just wrote to us about it, and it's great how you are able to inspire just not only us as students and teachers, but also organizations and people who are working so actively to, to save the world and to make that change. So thank you so much, Robert, for taking us through this amazing journey today. We have only learned about the greenhouse gases and climate change in our books, but today, looking at your presentation, being on this journey with you has truly inspired us, and hearing you, have hope and letting you, for you to let us know that, hey, there is time, and we are, there is still change happening, and we can be a part of that change, is so, it's so great to know. So thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for being
thank
so
you.
perseverant and determined to make the change. Thank you for
I'm
inspiring
very
us so
extremely
much.
proud to be part of everything. Thank you, Jimothy, for all of your hard work this evening. And Indra, thank you very much to you and
Thank
to
you.
Reshma
Thank you,
and
Robert. Thank you so much.
any of the family. And just good luck. Just remember, young people listening, hang on to the dream. Anything's possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Indira, I know you wanted to share something with Robert as well. Please go ahead.
No, I think Robert, I think he's left. I think he left. It's okay.
Lovely.
I'll
So
speak to him. Yeah.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming in today on Saturday morning. We hope we've addressed all your questions. At any point, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to, if you want to reach out to Robert and have any questions answered, if you want to work on this path, please feel free to write to us on Gateway, and we would love to work with you. We would love to collaborate, and also obviously be in touch with Robert, and he will guide us through it. So thank you so much for being here. We definitely hope you guys can make that change. We do see, we do hope that you can make that little change in your own lives. We know a lot of us here are working towards it. We know a lot of us here are super excited to make a difference, to the world, and to protect the world from climate change. So please keep continuing it, and feel free to write to us at any point if you have any questions about this webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful having all of you here today.
So this is the most useful time what we have done. Like, we have learned something useful, so we don't need to then put ourselves in danger or others in danger.
Thank you, Jay.
Welcome.
Any of y'all want to ask Ms. Gomati a question? Did you all enjoy the webinar? Good. Let's try and put it in. Let's try and use some of Robert's recommendations and try and make changes. Thank you, everyone.